We are live
there's
now.
Great. Okay, good morning, everybody. Today is March 9th at 10 a.m. I'd like to call this a joint special committee meeting to order of the Personnel and Public Safety Committees. Acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the ongoing hiring process for a new chief of the fire department. Desiree, unless you'd like to jump in, I'd like to just kind of replay the scenario and the situation we find ourselves in, which you know, we're not in a great spot, obviously, but I'll kind of replay the scenario and then make a recommendation. Again, unless you had anything prepared that you wanted to say about where we are. I'm not hearing.
Do you want me to fill out?
No,
do you want me to fill out any gaps?
No, not necessarily. I just didn't want to cut you off if you had something that you needed or wanted to say.
Do you want me to go through where we are?
I'll go through it.
Okay.
I'm not going to rehash every single detail of the process again. We've done that in several meetings before, but just recapping kind of the what's happened since we made an initial offer to an external candidate that was not accepted. A majority of council then recommended an internal candidate, and that offer was prior to being accepted. There were several, first of all, during the discussion, several council members indicated their support for a different internal candidate. And in the course of making that offer, you know, that was widely known. And there was concern expressed from the fire department that there was not a consensus or unanimity among council for a single internal candidate. And subsequently, given the feedback from the fire department and from council, that lack of consensus, that internal candidate declined. And so we find ourselves in a position now where we have, you know, we've made two offers that have both been declined because of the manner in which that offer was not accepted, and that we did get that feedback from the fire department. I would like to make a recommendation, and I'll make it in the form of a motion, that we go back to our finalist list of 10 candidates, specifically going to the external candidates only, due to, again, that feedback that we got, that they're looking for a full consensus support from council behind a single candidate.
I'll second.
Okay, now, Desiree, if you have any other gaps you want to fill in, you're obviously welcome to do so. And I'll kind of give you the floor first if there's any gaps to fill. Otherwise, I'll open the floor for discussion.
I don't think that there's anything I need to add to your description, I guess, of the events that have led us to this point.
Okay.
John, I don't know if you can see Ryan and Jimmy Ward both have their hands up.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan. I don't know who came first. I'm sorry.
Yep,
I can't see
that's
everybody.
fine. So this motion was to open up to only external candidates?
Correct.
Okay. So we all received a letter this morning that was received yesterday from a lot of the fire department stuff, voicing their support for a single candidate as well. Why would we not open it up to both internal and external candidates that are in the top 10?
Well, because I'll kind of just restate what I said, but the discussion that we had previously around internal candidates, it was really between two candidates, and you had a majority supporting one and a minority supporting another. And subsequent to that discussion, I know Desiree heard from several individuals that from the fire department that there was concern that there wasn't a unanimous support for one individual candidate from council, and that's what they were looking for. Jimmy Ward?
Who is they?
members of the fire department?
Well, it looks like to me from their letter now that they're all supporting one internal candidate.
Well, Jimmy, there's conflicting information between messages that are being received. So, Desiree, I don't know if you want to speak to the meeting or meetings that you've had with members of the fire department, but the letter to me doesn't change the fact.
And just one more thing. I mean, are you
Philip or
saying that,
Randy?
are you indicating that we can't, because there won't be a unanimous consent from council, that we can't support anybody unless there's unanimous consent? And because there wouldn't have been unanimous consent with the second internal candidate, we're just going to bypass them?
You know what? I'm not really going to entertain that discussion. Philip or Randy, do you have any comments?
That was
Yeah,
a valid question.
I'm sorry. Brian, you.
Go ahead. I got cut off.
No, I wouldn't presume that's what John is insinuating. I think the simple fact is, if we were to focus on an internal candidate, we're not going to have unanimous consent, and nor are we bound to have unanimous consent from council. I will tell you personally that I have a very difficult time with a letter being circulated under the presumption that everybody willfully signed, a letter and some concerns in that letter. I mean, this process has evolved into a mess, frankly, with this. And I think it's our responsibility to still determine who the best candidate is. And to John's point, I tend to agree at this point, we should be focusing on an outside candidate.
John, if I may.
Sure.
You asked me about some of the feedback that we received, and I think we've all heard that there were concerns about sort of the process and whether or not the fire department had input in the process. And in order to address that, I notified you all that I've engaged the services of HR consultants to conduct one-on-one interviews with the members of the fire department to try to identify some issues that I think we have percolated during this process that we may not have been aware of that need to be addressed. And that process is happening next week. So they're going to have an opportunity to provide feedback on the characteristics that they want to see in a fire chief for the department. That's information that the committee and the city will be able to use and to better understand the current state of the department.
Hey, John, Jimmy Ward's got his hand up, or Ryan does too, actually.
Okay.
You can't see people on your phone.
All right. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Why don't we hire this outside consultant without talking to personnel and public safety committees? And no matter how this vote goes, I'm going to have my own motion. Y'all might not like it. I might not even get a second, but I don't like the way this is going at all.
Okay. Noted. That point is sort of not part of what we're voting on now, but I noted. I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
I still have, can you see me, John?
Yeah, but I want to go ahead and call for the vote. Nicole, do you want to?
If Councilmember Moy's
Do I have
calling
a
for the
second?
vote, I have to have a second.
So if we,
Have a second.
I need
We're
a
just-
second if we're doing
so
that.
we're done discussing this. You're moving forward.
Let's
I'm calling for the vote.
Ryan make his comment, John, and then call for the vote.
So there's no
Right.
there's no second, so the motion to call for the vote
Well,
fails.
I think Councilmember Bell just
Go ahead, Ryan.
seconded the motion. Did you not?
You did.
I did, but I said, if procedure allows, let Ryan make his comments.
Well, actually, it doesn't. Procedure does not allow. Once you call the question, that mutes
Okay.
discussion
Call for
completely.
the vote.
Okay. So the motion on the floor, let me reiterate it. is to go back to the finalist list of candidates, the list of 10, and to re-engage
No.
discussion with them with those within the 10, the external candidates on the final list of 10. Is that correct, Councilmember Moy?
That's correct.
All right. Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Nay.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Nay.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-2.
Jimmy Ward's got his
Okay.
hand.
I believe that covers the agenda. I don't think we have anything else on the agenda.
Wow.
Councilmember Ward has his hand up. Councilmember Moy.
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy.
Like to make the motion that the committee
Okay.
recommend appointing Jason Smith, Fire Chief.
Second.
All right.
Okay,
vote.
discussion. So here's for discussion then. So what if we're going through this HR survey? What if that internal, we're going to go through, interview all the fire personnel. What if that fire person, if it comes through and all the HR and internal information that they're pulling from that recommends an internal candidate, and you just made a motion to only pull from external? Would that matter?
The process isn't going to recommend a single candidate. That's not the purpose of the study. And frankly, the study is not necessarily meant to identify who should or shouldn't be hired. It's merely meant to capture feedback that the hiring committee can use.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you go through the study, and the study shows that all the candidates, all the fire personnel would like to have an internal candidate, you just voided that by only hiring from externally.
Well, I don't think the question is that they're going to go in and say, do you want an internal or an external candidate for the fire department? They're rather going to look at issues with the fire department, is my understanding. Does anybody else have any comments?
Desiree, can you elaborate on it?
Yeah,
What
That's where I was headed. That's where I was
Yeah,
headed.
the purpose of the personnel audit, it's not only to identify feedback from the department on what they want to see in a next fire chief. It's going to be inclusive of a lot of other questions. Actually, we're working through the questions right now with experts that have done similar work with other fire and police departments. I think ultimately there's a hiring process that was followed, a hiring process that included a different steps. And I think that including other information should be what drives decision making for the hiring committee. I don't feel like a final decision should be based solely on the opinions of the members of the fire department. They should certainly have input that you all should use in decision making. But ultimately has to be sort of a structured hiring process, which I think is what the goal was from the very beginning.
And Desiree, will these questions will be coming, I guess, from the consultant, and you guys will narrow down a list essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it won't come.
Yes, and I felt like it was important to have somebody who's independent, who doesn't know people, and hopefully people feel comfortable sharing information one-on-one. That would be helpful for me, and it'd be helpful for the personnel in the public safety committee to identify any other issues that need to be addressed within the department. This is not solely about the hiring process, but a way or an avenue to allow them to provide input, which is the main concern that I heard from the department when the first offer was made.
Okay. I'm just,
All right.
one more time, if just one real quick question is, in any hiring process, everybody has to, we're the ones making the decision on this. We all have to do our due diligence on this. I'm just curious, if anybody else in the committee has had the opportunity to go down and walk through the fire department recently and talk with the personnel down there. If anybody's made the opportunity to try to meet with us, or if not, if we're just going off, paperwork and Zoom interviews. So,
Any other comments?
yeah.
There's a motion still on the floor for the committee to make a recommendation to appoint Jason Smith as the fire chief.
I think so, Nicole.
Let's vote, Nicole.
Okay, we're ready for vote on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Bell?
Hey,
I'm sorry, nay?
nay.
Okay. Councilmember Buchanan?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds?
Nay.
Councilmember Moy?
Nay.
Motion fails 2-3.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?